Hey, Deserver listeners, this is the Psychology in Seattle. By the way, Stacy updated this logo so that it doesn't get washed out. There's a little border around that, if that makes any sense. So, new and improved logo after how many years? I don't know. Let's watch.
Over and over and over about the cat. And it's true, I don't want the cat up in my room. After we were done, we came upstairs and he's sitting in the office area. And I said, okay, I need to know, is the door just about the cat? And it's not about us having an intimate kind of our marriage, side of our marriage. And he goes, I'm not really interested in that anymore.
Okay, so to catch you up, there was a long sequence in a recent episode where Cody was talking with Garrison and Gabe, and as usual, Gabe was the one that was leading the charge, and Gabriel was trying to work with Cody, and Cody was trying to work with Gabriel to some extent. And it looked like a productive conversation. It looked like a very needed conversation that should have happened months ago, that Cody should have initiated or something. And then at one point, Gabriel starts to cry, and he is very healthy and functional in his expression of desire of a closer relationship with his dad, or his dad to put more effort or something, warmth, something. And Cody was not being a dick by that point, but was not really showing up with the warmth or the tenderness or the care or the love that I hope we would have seen from Cody in the past. I think we saw evidence of that in the edit, that Cody would have responded and attuned in that way. If that's all we saw, then I don't know what I would conclude, but given everything else, anyway. So we saw in an earlier episode, Janelle emphasized this, that Gabriel was very close to Cody, and through all the COVID stuff, that he feels very hurt and abandoned by Cody. And, I've said this before, I'll say it again. It's one thing to follow different rules and have boundaries about keeping distance from people who aren't following. If Cody wanted to keep socially distant from his son, who is being a little bit more lax about the rules, okay, fine. But you can still have contact with your son. You can call him the phone, you can have video conference, you can text him, you can hang out with him outside, you could go over to their house and just have a chat outside or whatever, throw the ball, whatever. And Cody has not done that. And Cody is actively rejecting and trying to get Janelle to reject as well. So that's not okay. It's hurtful. It's damaging and highly concerning. And Gabriel's the only one that, on camera anyway, is expressing this. There are others. I don't really know how Garrison feels. He seems to also be suffering. And I think Garrison likes the fact that Gabriel is leading the charge. I don't know, though, but they're editing it a little funny. But anyway, so we saw that scene. And now, and then in the end, Gabriel is in a one-on-one interview and talking about and crying about how his dad has really hurt him. And so we're getting that Janelle mentioned that, and to see it, it's heartbreaking. And Gabriel's just one of the kids. So it's upsetting to see. And then now Christine is sitting down with the camera. I think because of the pandemic, she's just set up a Ring camera or something. She's, blogging, if you will. And there's been a fair amount of that where the camera crew isn't there. It's them just filming themselves. And so she's talking about how they're installing a door at the bottom of her office area, the stairs. And she sat him down and said, are we going to be intimate in the future? And he said, I'm not interested in that. And she's really hurt by that. I've been curious, there's been a number of episodes, because at the end of the last season, she walked away while they were talking about the plots of land, and she was trying to get them all to move to Utah. And she's like, I don't want to be married anymore. Mary talked her down, so maybe that worked, or it just comes in waves or something. I mean, Christine has certainly had a much more boundaried approach to Cody, but I was assuming that she was still in that place, that she was done. But, it comes in waves, and there are backs and forths, and we're seeing now that she is reckoning with his position that he doesn't want to have sex with her anymore. And she's grieving or adjusting or hurt or something. So let's hear what she says.
Cheers. Anyways, I'm not interested in having an intimate marriage anymore. I don't like your behavior. We'll see if you can be a good sister wife and all this. And I'm like, okay, so you don't want us to have an intimate marriage? And he goes, no. And I'm like, that's not enough for me. I can't not have an intimate marriage. And he goes, people do it all the time. I know couples that don't have intimate marriages.
Yeah. But there's a bigger conversation. Sometimes various different things happen, and someone doesn't want to have sex anymore, but they want to stay married. They want to stay loving. So, yeah. But the way he's been treating everyone, at least in the edit, and I think without some tenderness here of just like, hey, I'm sorry, but I'm just not ready to have sex, or I'm willing to go to therapy and figure out a way forward, or, something. But just like, no, we're not, and at least the way she's characterizing it. And the way that she's characterizing his statements is consistent with what he said in front of the camera. He has a particular way of talking in recent seasons.
I don't know what to tell my kids. What did I do so wrong?
There's been a number of things that have been said in this episode. Both Cody and Christine have set up these sort of interviews. I think it's them during pandemic just setting up their phone or something and having a confessional. And maybe because they're not being interviewed, they're being, I think, more honest. I don't know, more straightforward. But anyway, Christine's in a really rough place because, so to catch you up, she talked about how, well, first of all, to catch you up, he also did a confessional selfie video in which he said he was really confused as to why Christine was so upset. He says that he doesn't want to have sex with her because she betrayed him, and he is upset about that. And they did some flashback scenes of them bickering at each other years and years ago, which I remember those scenes. But they were in the middle of a lot of positive interactions. So when you see them in a flashback all kind of condensed together, it's just like, wow, this marriage has been over a long time. But I think if I recall all the moments, at least in the edit, there were a lot of moments of, I think, hope and togetherness and warmth, or at least tolerance of each other or something. Anyway, but to catch you up, at this point, she has packed up all of his stuff in boxes and put it in the garage. What she's saying is she is worried that if she doesn't do that, then he will come over and be spending all of his time packing up all of his stuff and won't spend any time with the kids. And she doesn't want to take time away from the kids, which, I could see Christine having that thought. And so she's like, well, I'll just pack up all of his stuff. And so when he comes over, he can just pick up his stuff. Well, so before that, she told him, well, if we're not having sex and if that's the end, then that's it. We're done. And I don't want you coming over. You can come over and visit the kids, but I don't want you sleeping here, and you're not going to sleep in my room. And so, each of them are taking measures to separate as a couple without saying divorce, right? Because I think that, it's too early to potentially think about that for them, but also might not be possible. I don't know. So I don't have a lot of hope. I don't think either one of them wants, particularly him, wants to really try to pull out of the nosedive that's been happening for years. Anyway, so she essentially is saying, I don't want you here. You can certainly come over and hang out with the kids, but that's it. You'll be a visitor. And I'm going to pack up all your stuff. So she packed up all her stuff, put it in boxes. And what she's saying is that, she doesn't want to take away from the kid dad time. But I could also imagine her just wanting to just get rid of, just to see his stuff around, his clothes or stuff would bother her. And she's like, I'm going to, I'm not throwing his stuff in the street. I'm doing him a favor. I'm packing up for him. But she's not telling him, so I imagine he'll discover this and it'll be kind of a shock. But I imagine that he is happy. I think he, whether he knows it or not, has wanted to be done with a number of, maybe all the marriages, maybe also with Robin. I don't even know. Because he seemed to turn a corner a number of years ago, even before the pandemic, that he just didn't want to be in a polygamous relationship anymore, but didn't feel like he had the permission or the gumption to actually take action to break up, and instead has just been essentially treating the sister wives like shit, either subconsciously or consciously, in an effort to get them to leave him so that he can say that, well, I didn't leave.
It's been so hard for so long. I feel like I don't have a choice but to throw his stuff out because I can't. It's too heartbreaking to be around his stuff, and it's too heartbreaking to be around him and watch him with.
And this is real stuff. This is real reality TV, right? People who don't watch reality TV, myself included, back before the pandemic when I didn't watch reality TV, might say, "Oh, reality TV, it's all fake and scripted and a joke." And when I hear people say that, it's usually dudes like myself in the past. And I'll, if I'm in a position to say so, I'll be like, yeah, certainly some shows for sure, but there's a lot of reality TV out there, and some of it is absolutely, and I can't know, but there's a lot of evidence that it's real shit, like with Love is Blind, people are married with kids. That's all fake? It may be, but probably not. And this sort of situation, is this all fake? It doesn't seem like it. This is real. This is real. And we're being given the opportunity to see this, and they're displaying it. They don't have to. They could opt out of the show. They could opt out of filming this sort of thing. So it's nice of them to offer this up for, at the very least, entertainment, I suppose, but also for an opportunity for us to think about our own lives. That's where I'm going right now, is I'm wondering if all of us in part have been there before. Maybe even you were the one that broke up, but just that initial shock and emotion and this pathway that just disappears before you into the future of being with someone forever, particularly if you're in a position like this, having been married for 30 years or so, 25 years or something, and to be so intertwined and to have it so public, and to be so hurt and to allow yourself to actually feel the pain, right? I think what we're seeing is that she has been in pain and she's kept it at bay, or she's reframed it in her mind, or she's had hope and said, oh, well, keep going. It'll be okay. Look on the bright side. But now there's no reason to do that. And so it all comes flooding forward, and you start to feel all the pain potentially at once because you're allowing yourself, or it's just too much to hold back. And it's hard. And you start to feel like you've wasted all your life. Or, well, now what? Or am I a piece of shit? Is that why this is happening? So, there's a lot of recovery, and I suspect that, because this is 2020, I think, so it's been 5 years or 4.5 years since this point. I would suspect that Christine will bounce back, because I think she has the strength and the know-how and the support to do so. So at least I hope that happens. Although, I don't know, maybe they'll get back together. I can never tell. I highly doubt it, though. The seasons go by over a number of years, and that's arguably they have not had a good relationship, maybe ever, but particularly, I think, ever since the very first season that we saw, like 12 years ago.
Something weird's going on. Cody's books. Cody's books. Cody's clothes. Cody's clothes. I guess I've been moved out of the house. Personally, I don't know what to think about this. This is not something we discussed.
So he's blogging again because it's the pandemic, right? And he's noticing that all of his stuff is packed up, and he seems confused. I'm confused why he's confused. Isn't this what he wants?
Almost don't care.
You can leave a marriage in our church. If it's a marriage like mine and Cody had, where it's just a spiritual marriage, then they release you spiritually and that you go through them. As far as I'm concerned, that's just between me and God.
Okay, so we're learning that in their church they can get divorced, it sounds like. So that's interesting. I wondered what the rules were about that. I would imagine, though, I mean, I'm glad to hear that there is that provision, but I imagine, though, that it's highly discouraged, or that there's some pressure there, I think. Cody has seemingly indicated that he, as the husband, there's a different expectation for him. And he frames it this way, and I don't know if this is true, that he can't divorce them, but they can divorce him, something like that. But I don't even know if that's true.
I think I'm more afraid of what karmic value this has. The idea of divorce seems tragic, seems terrible. All my faith, my belief system is kind of anti-divorce, I suppose.
Right. I'm interpreting that in line with what I was thinking earlier, which is that although officially they will say, yeah, you can get divorced, but there will be all these messages that are messages like, but if there are consequences, you said karma, which a lot of mainstream Americans are, they don't actually know what karma means really, but they're just inserting that word. I can go down a whole road, but the point is that I think he's referring to, I've been told or given the impression, or I believe, because a lot of people in my religion believe that, yeah, there's not a strict rule about it, but there's karma, there's consequences if you go against God. I think there might be a similar message around being gay, that it's like, we still love you, but, make sure that you listen to God. And they wouldn't say that if someone was heterosexual, right? They wouldn't say, oh, you're heterosexual. Oh, well, make sure you pay attention to what God's trying to tell you, that kind of. Anyway, so I think he's wrestling with that. And maybe even if he's divorced, maybe even if she leaves him, there could still be some sort of spiritual consequence. And it might even be said explicitly, I wouldn't be surprised, that, or they will use examples like, oh, did you hear about Joe? Well, y'all know that his wife and him were going through a lot of fights, wife number 3, and they got divorced. Well, did you hear he got cancer? Or did you hear his kid became an alcoholic or something like that? I'm an outsider and I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised. And so message received, right? So I think he might be kind of wrestling with that, maybe questioning it. I don't know.
I guess that's hypocritical, but I'm not bothered by this. Maybe it's just my initial reaction. I should be bothered by it, right? And the first thought I have is, this is my house. This is my stuff. We never discussed this. Second thought I have is relief. Some kind of relief from the burden.
Yeah, I've heard that from many people, in many situations, that when they are dumped in a long-term relationship like this, there's a mixture of feelings, and there can be a feeling of relief of them thinking, well, I never wanted to break up, but now that it's happening, why do I feel such relief? He also said he doesn't really feel anything. I don't know if I included that clip. I think that's evident. It could just be that he's stunned, but it also could be that he mourned their relationship a long time ago, or it never developed into anything. There's some evidence of that, actually, that none of the marriages really had time to develop into bonds. And, because especially with someone like Christine, who gets added in late, after two women are already there, and then boom, kids. They did spend time consciously not having kids for a couple of years to make sure that they did bond prior to that, but pretty quickly a bunch of kids. And so once that happens, it's hard in a monogamous relationship to continue to have the bond, let alone to have 3 or 4 wives and 20 some odd kids. So there's that. But there's also a strong possibility that he shows a lot of signs that he is not in connection with his pain and his hurt and his vulnerability. And he doesn't even know it's there, but it comes out in anger and rejection and the kinds of things that we're seeing, I think.
And the woe of a loveless marriage, and the fear of the culpability for my behavior and my actions and things that I've done wrong in this that have led to this point. But I'm not really talking about how I really feel, because I don't know what that is right now.
Well, that's interesting. Maybe he is aware that he's not aware. It kind of sounded like that, right? That's encouraging, I think, for his mental health. And maybe this is a wake-up call for him. I will say there is something of a contrast between the way that Christine was reacting to the reality of this and him. Christine was worried about the kids and worried about the other sister wives, and he isn't mentioning that. And everyone grieves differently, but I just wanted to mention that there's a contrast there. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.